Hey guys, it's been a while since I've done a longer video. This is a blonding video. We're going to safely take my client from like a warm level 9 to a nice bright, cool, icy level 10. You can follow me on Instagram at Christy@the_cottage.
Hey guys, let's just get it out in the open. I did a treatment on my face called microneedling. So if you see that it looks really sunburned or really red and splotchy in some areas, it's because of a treatment that I'm doing because I'm almost 40 and I'm trying to prevent aging and wrinkles. So the microneedling gets rid of wrinkles and whatever. Anyway, so I just want to let you know. That's why I don't have any makeup on, because I have like stuff on my face and I just am like, whatever, I'm not even going to try it today then. Which, you know, isn't too far out of the ordinary. So for my client that I'm doing today, she wants to go heavier blonde. She's already pretty blonde, like solid through the mids and it ends, but we're definitely gonna go a lot brighter, like through the root area. She hasn't had it done much through the underneath. So we're going to try to pack in some foils there, especially for like when she pulls her hair up and everything, so that she can really get this underneath area to have some really pretty blonde pieces throughout there. She likes it kind of, some of the pictures she sent me were some dimensional. You can like still see like some rooty areas. So we're definitely going to go through, try to make her really heavy, bright, super bright blonde, try to brighten up through some of the warmth that is still there in her ends. And I asked her if she has a price range that she wants to stay within, and she was realistic, and she said, you know, $500 to $600 at the most. And I'm thinking that realistically, I don't think we'll hit that. For how much blonde we've already done in her hair and everything. I know the first time we did her hair, we had to go heavy blonde from like dark, and so it was a little bit higher end, but I'm thinking we probably won't have to go that high this time. So anyways, that's what we're going to be doing today, and I'm going to be using my Schwarzkopf Blonde Me, and because her hair is really fine and she probably naturally sits at like a level 6, 7, I'm gonna start her off with just 7 volume instead of 20, just to be safe, because I know that it's probably gonna sit for a while and I don't want to cause like any damage or anything like that. So we're just gonna start her lifting at 7 volume.
All right, so for the first majority of the service, we're only using 7 volume with Olaplex, and then eventually I will switch to 20 volume towards the end. And here's my client's before again. You can see she has a couple months worth of grow out. She's pretty light, but she doesn't have really anything like the bottom half of her head. So we're going to really make sure that we go in there and brighten that up quite a bit. If you've watched my videos before, then you know that I usually start at the front of the hairline, the front of the face, and the temple area for my hairline foils. But I really want to be cautious not to cause any damage, because I know this is going to be really heavy and going to be sitting for a while. So I want to make sure to be a little bit more gentle on the hair, especially since she's naturally like a level 7 or so. So I'm going to do this back section first, and then I will make my way up to the front. By the way, I know I've talked about it before in other videos, using a board for stabilizing. And I don't know if it's me clearly getting older or what it is, but I used to be like so against a board, but the longer that I do hair, the older that I get, the more painful my wrists get. I like using a board so much more because I feel like that really helps to stabilize the hair opposed to using my hand. And then my hand gets really cramped from stabilizing the foil with my hand. So if you've never used a board for foiling, I highly recommend it. It really helps your hand not hurt if you have any issues with like your hand being painful or getting crampy or whatever. It makes a big difference. Then also I feel like it's a lot better for saturation. I feel like I can like really push through the hair and paint through the hair and get better saturation when I use a board. You can see this subsection that I did is diagonal, and then it has like a wider space of her natural towards like the top part of that section. I'm trying to create different areas of like super bright areas of blonde, a little bit more of her natural depth through. So that way when she pulls her hair up, she's not just gonna have like a really solid like blonde hairline. I want her to see like different areas of depth and brightness. So even though we're doing like some really fine like weaves, some of the weaves are going like the blonde is going to overlap like when the foils connect edge to edge. Some of the foils are going to overlap each other. Some areas I'm going to have like more depth in between, but you can see here when I take this diagonal foil, that bottom corner kind of will overlap the corner of the other foil. So she's going to have some areas where it falls a little bit brighter. And I like that because when she pulls her hair up, when she wears a ponytail, if her hair's halfway down or halfway up, halfway down, she's going to have like lots of variation in brightness in her hair. I don't want to just go through and do like, you know, when you just do a back to back to back to back to back blonde foil, I feel like everything just falls really stationary and there's no definition or depth within the hair. So she showed me a picture that I had done on somebody else where you could really see like some shadowy areas and some rootiness. So that's why I'm making sure like in some of these areas, especially underneath and like the mid like when I get to the top, I'm not going to leave as much depth or as much of a subsection, but definitely like underneath, you're going to see me taking like larger subsections, and that's going to create a lot of depth within her hair that she wants. So make sure that you talk to your client about this. There's some clients that like they want a full foil and they want like literal strands of dimension. Like they hardly want any dimension. They maybe want like a super solid bright blonde with like minimal dimension. This isn't going to work on that client. You need to make sure that you're packing those foils in, no subsection at all, maybe just doing like slices and like a very fine weave with hardly any hair of her natural left out. If somebody wants almost a solid blonde, then this isn't the foil for them. This is for somebody that wants to see dimension in the hair still, some rootiness. This is perfect for that client. So also if you do a client that wants like the back to back to back foil, make sure that you're charging like an hourly rate and quote her potentially, you know, $600 to $700, $800, whatever. Those services take a long time. A full foil now is not what a full foil was in the early 2000s when you did like just a standard weave. The weaves were a lot thicker. The subsections were like a 1/4 inch subsection. So now it's like packed right on top of each other. So it's a lot more work. It takes a lot more time, a lot more bleach. And so that's why the prices is much more high. So make sure that you explain that to clients, that if somebody wants a really heavy, bright blonde foil, the price is going to be, you know, for all of my blonde transformations, I do an hourly charge now. So for her, I thought her hair was maybe going to take 4 hours. Like what am I thinking? Why do I think it's ever going to be less than 6 hours for doing like a blonde transformation? It's going to take forever. So make sure that you have that conversation with your client and let them know if they want like a really heavy blonde transformation. It's an hourly rate, whatever you set your hourly rate at. Mine used to be like $75. I've bumped it up to like $100 an hour. So it just depends on what you're comfortable and what you want to set yourself at, you know, with whatever education you have, your experience, whatever, that kind of stuff. So, anyways, so you can see here the hair that's falling between the foils. She has a little bit more depth within her hair. So this video is perfect for somebody that wants to be nice and bright, but still wants some depth and dimension left within the hair. Another thing with lifting for blondes, me using 7 volume on her hair, that is a rare occasion. I use 7 volume about as often as I use 30 or 40 volume, practically never. So the reason why I'm using just 7 volume on her hair is because she's sitting at a light enough level, and then also her hair is very fine. So I have confidence that this level 7 will be enough strength, you know, if it sits a little bit longer, for it to bust past any like brassiness in her hair as she lightens. If she was maybe like a level 3 to 5, I would definitely go to 20 volume. And then also if her hair was coarse, I would definitely do 20 volume. So me using 7 volume, if you're new to my videos, I don't want you to see 7 volume and think that's the standard like lift that I use. This is really rare for me to use that soft of a developer, but I feel like her hair is going to lift really nicely. And usually when I foil, I take really thin weaves. Like my sections are not very thick. Usually you can see through them pretty nicely. And then I do a really good job of like doing really heavy saturation. So just make sure when you're doing a foil that you're doing a really heavy amount of bleach like on your foils. Like obviously don't overdo too thick of bleach like per foil, but I'm just saying like sometimes I see people do their foil application and they'll just like take the brush and the bleach and just like paint it on the hair, like do like one little swipe or barely like swish, 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 whatever. And then that's it. And then I can guarantee you that if you lifted up the hair up, the underneath wouldn't be saturated at all. So I always try to make sure that I'm doing like a heavy amount of bleach, making sure that the saturation is really, really well. And all of that stuff will help you get like the best lift possible. So I wouldn't say that you ever have to use 30 or 40 volume to get a good bright lift. I have lots of clients that sit at like a level 2 or 3 and all I ever use is 20 volume on them, and I can get them to a level 10 really easily. As long as my sections are extremely thin, like paper thin slices, weaves, whatever. If you use too thick of a section or a slice or a weave, you're going to be stuck at a level 8 and you might have to reapply to push past that like warmth. So as long as you're using like a really thin section for your blonding, you should get pretty decent lift. So I just wanted to say that. I don't want people to watch this video and then think like, oh, she only uses 7 volume. No, I typically don't ever use 7 volume. So now that I'm done with that back section, I'm going to come to the front and do her hairline foils. And I want to say, you guys, take note. This bleach has probably been sitting for over an hour. This is why I'm moving up right now and doing her hairline. This bleach is extremely weak. It's a 7 volume that's sitting for probably over an hour. So this is very gentle bleach at this point. I need to point that out and make sure you guys understand, because if you go in there at the beginning of the service with potential 20 volume or something that's too strong, you could cause a lot of breakage. I'm trying very hard to swish and like not overlap or anything. There's some people where I watch them foil and they do heavy amounts of overlapping. Like you can see her blonde foils around her, or her blonde pieces around her face are really nice and bright. There's absolutely no reason to run bleach through the ends there. And there's some stylists that I watch where they will still swipe and run bleach through like the whole length of the hair. That's going to cause a lot of breakage. So just be really, really cautious when you're doing your facial framing foils. This is where the hair is a little bit more fine. It's definitely prone to more breakage if you're not cautious. So I just really want you guys to know that this is 7 volume. It's been sitting out for a long time. It's really, really weak. So this will be safe to sit here for the full length of the service because it's extremely gentle by this point. And also, if you've never watched my videos, this is the way that I like to do my foils around the hairline, is to do just really fine baby lights vertically. That helps create more of like a softer blend. You can even see like kind of up at the top of where her money piece area is how soft that blend is. There's like not any heavy, like the way that the hair is wrapped up, it looks streaky and whatever. But if her hair was to just like brush back, it would blend really nicely. There wouldn't be any heavy lines in the hair or anything like that. So that's going to help create like a really nice soft grow out. When your clients like take a few months to come in, they're not going to have like any heavy streaks or lines in the hair. The hair is just going to grow out really soft and naturally. And that's why I prefer doing my foils this way versus horizontally up the side of the head. Now, if you have clients that like having those like early 2000s racing stripes, which I do have some of those, then that's totally fine for you to go horizontally up the head if they like a little bit more of a streakiness. So now we're going to go in and she parts her hair down the center of her, from the center of her forehead is where her part is at. So we're just going to do her money piece in like a V section because that's like, you know, she has a more of a triangular shape of a hairline. So we're going to do our foils kind of like in a V sectioning right now versus just going straight across the center. All I would be able to do is get like that little point if I went straight across, and then that would leave like a dark area at the very edges of her hairline, the corners of her forehead. She would have like no connection with the foils. So depending on what your client's hairline is, if your client has more of a straight forehead, then you could go just do your money piece straight down the center. But because she has more of like a V-shaped, triangle shape hairline, I like to go from the center to the sides on both sides of the hairline to make sure that she has nice connection across her hairline, connecting to like the temple foils. That way when she pulls her hair back, she has like even amount of brightness all the way around, and she won't have like any dark holes, like dark circles or dark areas on her hairline at all. So we're just going to finish applying her money piece foils, and then I think we're going to start through the back section of her hair again. All right, this is me just checking and seeing where her hair is at as she's lifting. So you can see here that she's probably like at a level, probably like a level 8 in this back area, probably maybe 7, 8. Right now I'm going to go mix more lightener, and because I'm getting to the top part of her head, which I know sometimes this can be a little bit more difficult for it to lift, I just got myself a fresh bowl of bleach, and from here on out, for the rest of the service, I'm going to be using 20 volume with Olaplex. And that's because I feel like even if I take a more fine section, I feel like the more foils that we do, it's really insulating the underneath part of her head. And so it's going to really help process those foils that have like a level, or sorry, that are that's processing with like a level 7 volume. But this top section isn't going to have all those foils laying on top of it. It's not going to create as much heat as the underneath, so it potentially isn't going to lighten as quickly or as much if I were to keep using a 7 volume developer. So that's why I'm switching to 20 volume at this point, because let me tell you, there's times where I look at someone's hair and I'm like, oh yeah, you'll be fine. And even with 20 volume, and I'm like, go back through and it's just taking forever, that last little bit to process. So I definitely would switch to 20 volume up at this point to make sure that you start getting quicker and better lift. And you'll notice also here that I'm trying to be really cautious of not running the bleach through the ends. So make sure that you're trying to weave out any of those blonde pieces or pick out the darker pieces and pull the blonde aside so that you're not overlapping any of those areas. And then here you're going to see that I'm really starting to take much smaller subsections. That subsection is basically right on top of that last foil. So now that we're getting up closer to the crown of the head where she wants to be, obviously she wants some like depth and dimension in the hair, but she wants an overall lighter appearance. So I don't want to leave too much of her natural out because I don't want her to feel like too dark. We want to get like a nice bright lift everywhere. So we're going to do like less of a subsection now from here on out. We're just going to do like really nice weaves. I'm probably at some point going to start like doing slices in between. So just pay attention to the size of the subsection as you work your way to the top of the head. All right, so I'm going to move over to the sides of her head now, and I want to say at this point in the service, I've probably been foiling for about 2.5 hours, and I've probably mixed about 3 different bowls of bleach so far at this point. You can see as I'm making my way up here, like that weave that I just took, the only hair that I'm leaving out as I'm getting higher up on her head is the hair that I'm weaving out. So I'm not really doing like a deliberate like subsection or anything. I'm really just weaving out her natural, and that's the dimension that's going to be left behind. All right, so we're just going to finish up these last few foils on this side, and then I'm going to flip to the other side of the head and do the same foils, slice or weave subsections, all of that stuff that we just did on this side. And we're going to work our way up until we get like just to right above the, almost right to the top of the head. All right, because those first money piece foils that we did directly on her hairline earlier in the video, I feel like the way that her hair falls, her natural hair is going to fall on top of those really brighter pieces. So I wanted to go back through and hit some of these pieces and brighten them up like that will act as like the overlay of her money piece and give her some brighter areas. So we're going to come through here and make a connection between the two sides, do some weave back comb and give her just some brighter pieces in the front just to give her a little bit more boldness and brightness, because otherwise it might look a little bit too soft. So she definitely wants to feel like a lot brighter towards the front of her face. So that's why we're going to go through and do these little foils here. And now that we're finishing this little top last section that we're at, this is another last fresh bowl of bleach. That way she'll have like the best possible lift. It's not going to take too slow or anything like that. I always like to make sure when I'm at the very last top section that I refresh my bleach before I finish off here, because sometimes if you've been foiling for like 30-45 minutes, that last part of the bowl has been sitting for quite a while. The lifting power is pretty much dead. So, I mean, if it sits there long enough, obviously it's going to do something, but like you don't want to have to wait 2 hours for the lightener to lift nicely. So I always go and refresh my bleach when I'm about to be in my last section. That way I make sure that it has like the best lift possible. And also we're not doing like 30 volume or 40 volume or anything like that. I personally don't use ever that high of a volume unless it's like somebody with really dark hair naturally and they're just sitting at a level 8 and they're having a hard time budging past that. Then I might mix like a 30 volume and just go apply it over the previous bleach just to like give it a little bit of lifting power just for like the last 15-20 minutes or something like that. So now that we have our fresh bowl of 20 volume, we're going to lay it on nice and thick and start finishing up this last little section here. And again, we're doing just like really thin sections. I also want to make sure that I'm packing the foils in a little bit closer as I get towards the center where she parts her hair. Even though she parts her hair like down the center, I always say this, not always the exact same pieces of hair are going to fall on the exact same side. So I want to make sure that I'm doing even leaving less of her natural. I want to make sure that I'm doing the most possible brightest pieces where she parts her hair, where her hair is going to fall. That way, no matter what side of her part her hair falls on, she's going to have like the same amount of brightness on either side. I always say it like, imagine doing a foil and like doing a subsection, and then you are styling the hair, you see where the brightness lays, so then you part the hair exactly where the color lays perfectly. But then when the client's at home, or if the client is readjusting their part and they part their hair, say like, what if all of the brightness falls on one side and then the subsection lays on the other side? Like all the blonde is going to fall on one side of the head. So I always try to make sure when I'm doing my foils, probably like an inch of where their part falls, I make sure to do even less of a subsection, less of a weave, do a little bit heavier of a blonde, and that like inch section, I'll just pack those foils in a little bit more to make sure wherever their hair falls, because we don't always get the same exact hair every single time when we part our hair. That way they have an even amount of brightness wherever their hair falls. So we're just going to finish up these last few foils, and then she's going to process. I let her sit for probably like 30 minutes, and then I came through and checked her, and I told her, because she wants to like brighten up through the ends again, that after she's done processing probably like the last 10 minutes or so, we're going to come through and paint through the ends just to brighten them up a little bit more. But I'm going to wait until, you know, it processes for a while, because she doesn't need that much lift. She just needs to get past like that little bit of warmth that she has. So we don't need like super strong bleach or anything. She just needs to wait until like the last few minutes of her lifting. All right, and here she is. This was a good probably 3.5 hours worth of foiling. I'm a slow foiler, so don't feel bad if you take a little bit of time of foiling. Here we are. This is where we ended off, and then here's this last little section that we did. And you can see here that she's still stuck at like a level 8, so I'm just going to take the blow dryer, blast her with some heat. I never put my clients under the dryer. I always just go through, hit her with the blow dryer for a few seconds, and then maybe put a towel on their head to like preserve the heat or whatever. And maybe I'll do this 2 times or something, and this usually gets them where they need. So she's just going to finish processing, and now we're going to go through and paint through the ends. Again, this is the same bleach that I used on that last section, and so it's probably been sitting for about 45 minutes or so. Her hair's been processing since I finished for probably like 30 minutes. So these last like 10-15 minutes or so, this bleach is going to sit on the ends of her hair, but it's a weak bleach. It's been sitting out. So, you know, this won't cause any damage. All right, and this is the full final finished application, and she finished sitting like this for like 15 minutes. So we're just gonna pull these foils out, and then as I'm pulling the rest of the foils out around the top of her head, I'm going to start pulling the bleach through the ends just to brighten up those foils. And then I also went through, after all of her foils were out, I went through and made another fresh bowl of bleach, and I just kind of did an open air balayage and like painted right on her hairline just to brighten up a little bit more. This is the formulation that I used. I wrote it out for you guys to see a little bit better. This was to keep her nice and bright. I just used a little bit of a level 9 in there just to counteract any of those level 9 warmth tones that are still in there. And then this is her root shadow that I used, and I didn't get any of that application, but I just went through with my bowl at my brush at the sink and like applied there. But you can see that I have her money piece and hairline foils sitting out. I barely touched her root in that area because we wanted to make sure that we kept that nice and bright. So you can see here that her money piece is still much brighter. You can see that root shadow through the crown of her hair, and everywhere else just toned it down, just really soft and subtle, and gave her a little bit more depth. But you can see that her money piece and everything is still nice and bright. So I'm just going to give her a little snip off the ends, and then we'll go into styling. I also want to apologize to you guys. I'm just myself. Like, I don't have an assistant. There's oftentimes, like, I might be the only person at the salon, and it's not easy to hook up my recording stuff over at the shampoo stations. I don't have, like, a ledge really to attach it to record. So I'm sorry that, like, I can't really get footage of the root shadow or like when I repainted like the money piece and all of that stuff. So I apologize for that. Like, I wish that I had a better setup, or that I could like create my own setup, whatever, a little bit better, but I can't all the time. So I apologize for that. I try to get whatever footage I can for you guys, but sometimes it's just hard to like move things around, create a whole new setup or whatever. So I can't always get every little bit of the service like I wish that I could. So now we're going to go through and style. I know, a lot of people don't care. Some people do care. Some people ask me how I curl my client's hair. So I just like to put in a few little clips of that. So just make sure that you curl everything towards the back center and leave the ends out a little bit. And then when everything is said and done, you'll just comb through the hair and brush everything together, and that will create more of like a really soft, nice, natural like body wave. So you can already see like how really nice and bright she is. I really like that root shadow that I did. I did half and half of the, I think it was 8 and 9 1, I think it was. And that creates just like a little bit of a cooler tone, just to give her a little bit of softness at the root. And I really like using the Schwarzkopf for a root shadow because it has a nice depth to it. So here's her before again. Definitely like a lot warmer, not like a full heavy amount of blonde, lots of roots. And here's her after. So she's still really nice and bright, like up in the root area, but she just has a little bit of a softer tone to it from that root shadow, and then weaving her natural out. And you can see that she's really nice and bright and cool. I really like that formulation for toning because it keeps the hair really bright, but it's nice and cool, but not like too ashy or anything. It just has really nice bright iciness to it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys liked this video. Hopefully you guys made it through the whole thing. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you guys next time. All right, for those of you that wanted to know, this did end up taking me a little over 6 hours, and the total cost of the service was $600. So thank you guys again for watching.